45% more likely to get in. An earlier study found the legacy advantage was equivalent to an additional 160 points on the SAT. That's a major leg up. Colleges understand that admitting the kids of alumni help with fundraising. They don't like to talk about that, but it's true. The other factor that colleges don't like to talk about is affirmative action. The Supreme Court banned the use of racial quotas in admissions some years ago, but in real life, that decision meant nothing. Skin color remains a central consideration at every level of the process. The average admissions office is every bit as race-conscious as any institution in the Jim Crow South and far less transparent about it. The numbers tell the story. Every study, there have been a few of them, has shown a huge discrepancy between the achievement that colleges require of applicants of different racial groups. This is true at the undergraduate level and at the graduate level. A new analysis of recent data from the Association of American Medical Colleges, for example, found that African-American students with low scores in the med school admissions test and average grades had a 56% chance of getting into med school. At the other end, Asian students with the exact same scores and grades had a 6% chance of getting in. So facts like these have spurred lawsuits from groups and individuals alleging discrimination, and in every case, the data they've unearthed prove there's been discrimination. Defenders of the current system, though, say that nobody is being discriminated against and that race has nothing to do with these numbers. Of course, no one actually believes that. Consider this example. At Caltech, which has a rare race-neutral admissions policy, the student body was 43% Asian in 2013. At Harvard, which erects quotas against Asians, as it once did against Jews, that number was 18%, roughly where it has been for years, even as the number of Asian applicants has risen. When skin color becomes a criterion for admission, some people lose. But who exactly wins? No one ever asked that. Now, we know who's supposed to benefit. Affirmative action was designed to level the playing field for Americans whose ancestors had been discriminated against. Primarily, this meant black applicants. Yet 50 years after affirmative action began, the percentage of African Americans at many elite colleges appears to be dropping, even as schools boast about being diverse. How is that happening? Simple. Foreigners are taking their place. Under the rules of race-conscious admissions, the son of a Nigerian tycoon meets the same standards and checks the same box as the son of a single mother from the south side of Chicago. Both are black, so for the purposes of diversity goals, they're exactly the same. But in fact, they're not the same at all. One is poor, American, and descended from people brought to this country by force. You'd probably want to help that kid. The other is a rich foreigner, well-connected, and far more likely to have attended a selective private school. He doesn't need your help. Yet who has a better chance of leveraging diversity standards to get into Harvard? You know the answer. The rich kid does. He gets an advantage he hasn't earned and doesn't deserve, and that's a win for him. Harvard wins, too. It gets to brag about being inclusive. Meanwhile, the kid on the south side of Chicago doesn't go to college at all. This is happening at schools all over this country, and the trend is accelerating as immigration accelerates. A 2007 study found that among black students at the top 28 American universities, the percentage of immigrants was about double the representation in the broader population. At Ivy League schools, students from immigrant families accounted for fully 41% of black freshmen. At Harvard, a study 3 years earlier found that 2/3 of all black undergraduates were from immigrant backgrounds. This is the opposite of what affirmative action was designed to do. Yet over time, the definition of who is eligible for affirmative action has expanded even further, moving even farther away from where it began. In many places, illegal aliens now qualify for lower admission standards. Universally, identifying as Hispanic rather than white gives applicants the equivalent of 130 points on the SAT. So this is a huge advantage for newly arrived immigrants over native-born Americans. Yet it's puzzling if you think about it. Why should the descendant of Spanish conquistadors get preference over the great-grandchild of indentured Irish servants? What injustice is resolved by putting one over the other? How is that fair? How is it just? Well, of course, it isn't fair or just.